Welcome, folks. So glad to have you with us. This is a stat you might find interesting. There are about 6.7 million jobs in America unfilled. 6.7 jobs looking for people. In cybersecurity, there's several 100,000 jobs. In nursing, there's over 1 million jobs. And you can go down the list. And, you know, where are we going to get the people? Well, it looks like the president may have to ease up on some of this immigration stuff because we're not creating enough people, and the American businesses are hurting because they can't get employees. Now, ain't that a shame?
It's amazing. There's certain sectors that you can always find work. Yeah. You know, a nurse, a teacher, yeah. You said cybersecurity. Yeah. Isn't that, you know, pretty cool?
Well, for somebody like Regent, we're just thrilled that we can turn out graduates who are immediately hired. You know, our psych department, we've placed every single graduate, and we've got people coming out with doctors of psychology, and they're getting placed immediately as soon as they graduate. And that's wonderful. I mean, you know, for young people to think that there's a future ahead for them, but as far as the economy goes, there are a lot of businesses that say, Mr. President, please ease up a little bit. We've got to hire some people. We've got to get some workers. And I'm not just talking about people picking vegetables. I'm talking about people in every level all up the line. Well, it's kind of nice. Well, terrorists are not the only evil. They can be very creative. The Palestinians in Gaza have moved from firing rockets at Israel to much lower-tech weapons. This is what the Japanese used to do during World War II when they sent incendiary balloons across the Pacific to start fires in the Northwest. I was there in those days fighting fires, and now in Gaza, they're sending incendiary devices into Israel to burn up their crops. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable and evil. Those weapons bypass the Iron Dome defense system, starting fires across southern Israel. And the Israeli military has not come up with a solution. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from the Israel-Gaza border.
It can't get much more low-tech than this. Yet the flying fire kites or balloons have caused extensive damage to southern Israeli crops and nature reserves.
As you see, it's burned from a kite that the Palestinians sent us as a present 3 weeks ago.
Ofer Lieberman is the agriculture manager at Kibbutz Niram, less than a mile from the Gaza border. In the last 6 weeks, his kibbutz has lost 250 acres of wheat, 500 acres of cow pasture, and 25 acres of trees that were older than the state of Israel.
We stand here with tractors and equipment. When we see the fire, you know, we just run with the tractors and try to stop it as quickly as we can.
It's part of the Great March of Return, where tens of thousands of Palestinians repeatedly attacked the border fence with Israel. Palestinians posted this video with triumphant music on Facebook showing border infiltrations. Some have been killed or captured trying to do so. Israel is working on solutions to combat this latest weapon, and some are calling for targeted assassinations for those who are sending the kites. But Israeli Construction and Housing Minister Yoav Gallant says the Palestinians are desperate.
The kites and the civilian so-called marches towards defense are signs of frustration because all the operational military ways were almost blocked by Israel. The sea is closed, the land is closed. It's very difficult to hit Israel by rockets and missiles because of Iron Dome. We are in a project that will block eventually the tunnels.
Despite the trouble, Lieberman says he still has friends in Gaza.
I speak with them about once a week. My friends say that a lot of people in Gaza want the Israeli get inside to throw out the Hamas.
Lieberman says his kibbutz is growing, and he's optimistic for the future.
Here it's heaven, 23 hours a day. 1 hour it's hell. But normally this place, it's heaven. I hope it will be like this 24 hours a day. And I hope that, you know, we will live in peace.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thanks, Chris. You know, Israel had taken over Gaza That whole territory belonged to them. They were in charge of it. And Ariel Sharon made the move, well, I'm going to give that up, and I'm going to make a peace move toward the Palestinians to show them that we really care, and Gaza is not really something that we want particularly, so we'll give it up. And Israel withdrew, and the settlers there were forced to leave their homes. Jews were packed up and moved out of Gaza in that area. And this is the result of there was a vacuum. And who came into the vacuum? Not the good guys, but Hamas. And so Gaza is now under the control of Hamas. And what's Israel going to do? Well, what they're really going to have to do is repossess Gaza. They're going to have to do it. They should never have given it up to begin with. And I had enormous criticism in those days because I was misquoted, which is, something par for the course. But I was misquoted talking about Sharon, what he'd done, but it was not a smart move. And they're going to have to, it seems like Israel is going to have to retake Gaza. There's just no question about it. And that means there'll be a clash with Hamas, but they've got to do it. They really do. And if they don't, they'll continue to have these incursions, these demonstrations. But imagine fire bombs to burn up their crops. Isn't that something?
It doesn't get much more evil than that. Because
well, as I say, when I was just a kid, I was working in the Forest Service up in the Pacific Northwest, and the Japanese were sending over these balloons. They really were the incendiary balloons, and they'd drop down in the forest, and they'd start forest fires. So, I mean, this is nothing new. I mean, we're talking about 60, 70 years ago. And
I guess, certainly there are more evil things, chemical warfare and all those things.
You better believe
but
it.
It just shows how deep the hatred goes.
Yeah.
They want to take the food away from, their enemies' children and people. So.
Well, we now have new revelations about how the Obama administration was willing to go to get a nuclear deal with Iran. Ephraim Graham has more on our top story from the CBN Newsroom.
Pat, the Obama administration tried to help Iran get around sanctions by giving the Islamic regime access to the U.S. financial system. The Associated Press reports on an investigation by Senate Republicans, and it says the U.S. Treasury issued a license giving Iran the ability to convert $5.7 billion held in a bank in Oman. The license was not illegal, and in the end, the effort did not succeed. Still, the Obama administration denied to Congress that it was considering giving Iran access to the U.S. financial system. Social Security will be forced to dip into its trust fund for the first time in 36 years. The program's costs will exceed its income this year. That hasn't happened since 1982. It's also 3 years earlier than expected. Experts say the nearly $3 trillion trust fund will run out in 2034 unless Congress takes action to fix it. Medicare is also in dire straits. One report says its hospital insurance fund will be empty in 2026. Costs are higher for both programs because more Americans are retiring and they are living longer. Pat?
I've warned about this years and years ago that the Social Security was, well, what they've been doing, there was supposed to be a trust fund. That is a joke. You remember the debate about a so-called lock box? You remember that there was going to be a lock? There's no lock box. They have taken all of the money dedicated for Social Security they have used it to pay current bills. They have stolen that money, and what they've done is put a U.S. IOU into the, quote, lockbox. And this so-called fund is nothing but a bunch of IOUs from the federal government. There's no cash in the system because Congress has systematically raided the money that the people have been taxed to pay for Social Security, and they've done it year after year after year after year. And they say we've got a, quote, reserve fund. There's no reserve fund. It's an IOU based up by government debt. And now they're going to have to raise more taxes in order to pay the money that they've stolen from the Social Security fund. And we don't have enough money to pay those bills. And so they'll, quote, raid it, which means they'll take those government securities and put them on the market and sell them. and hopefully people will buy them rather than raise taxes. But that's what they're hoping for. They talk about the fund, but right now, Social Security, the problem is that the American people are getting older. They're retiring much longer, and they're draining the system. It's ridiculous to have a system which pays people at age 65, because that's what it used to be during Franklin Roosevelt. People died earlier. Now, because of life-saving medicine, people are staying alive a lot longer, and you're looking at one right now who's beating the odds. But this is the fastest growing segment of our population, people over 80. And so they've got to, Congress has got to step up to the plate, and they have to raise the age when they start paying off Social Security. It's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, we're hearing more and more people living healthy lives, even up to 90 and 100.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, you know, with medicine the way it is, I mean, a lot of diseases that kill people have been halted in their tracks. We've got a tremendous medical system, but it's keeping a lot of folks like me in the game a whole lot longer. All right.
Thank God for that.
Well, I guess we can thank God for it. But nevertheless, that means that you can't pay Social Security at age 65 or so. We've got to move that age up to maybe 70, 75. That may help a little bit, but somebody's got to move on it. And they don't have the political will to make it happen. All right, Ephraim.
The Supreme Court sent a strong message this week warning local governments not to demean people of faith for their beliefs. While the justices didn't broadly answer religious liberty questions, that could happen very soon. As Heather Sells reports, until then, more challenges lay ahead for Christian businesses when it comes to same-sex weddings.
Colorado baker Jack Phillips and many people of faith are celebrating this week's Supreme Court win. The Trump administration also appreciated the ruling.
The Supreme Court rightly concluded that the Colorado Civil Rights Commission failed to show tolerance and respect for his religious beliefs.
You had a state civil rights commission telling Jack Phillips that your views are detestable.
The ruling could also dramatically affect Washington florist Barronelle Stutzman. The Supreme Court will decide this week whether to hear her case. Her attorneys believe they have a stronger argument since the Washington Attorney General has repeatedly demeaned her faith. Legal experts say Tuesday's decision might even open the door to overturning local ordinances that outlaw sexual orientation discrimination if it can be shown that they were passed as a result of hostility towards people of faith. In the meantime, Christian wedding vendors should carefully follow the law, especially in cities or states that outlaw sexual orientation discrimination.
You are certainly at risk. You are at risk of a lawsuit that could go on for years. You're at risk of losing your business.
Regent law professor Brad Jacobs also advises these vendors to follow Phillips' example. Make it known that they serve gay customers, but won't create something for a gay wedding.
They should make it clear that they will sell all sorts of products to gay people.
Even following that course, there are still many legal landmines to dodge until the Supreme Court provides a clear answer. Heather Sells, CBN News.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we've told you that this is a problem. And the fact that we're going to be fighting this battle over and over and over again, somebody's got to have the courage to make some special laws. And what's got to happen, it looks like to me, is we've got to have another Republican appointed judge on the Supreme Court. President Trump has got a list from the Federalist Society. And right now, the Senate is poised to approve the nomination of his appointees. Mitch McConnell, by the way, has told the Senate, your autumn recess is over. You're going to have to stay and work. We've got to get the president's agenda passed, and we've also got to, confirm these nominations. There are many, many government nominations who haven't yet not been confirmed, and there are judges that need to be confirmed. And Mitch McConnell has told the Senate, you're going to work until you get the job done. Good for you, Mitch. Ephraim, what do you got?
Pat, another earthquake rocked the already erupting Kilauea volcano in Hawaii, sending ash a mile into the air. It's been more than a month since the volcano began erupting on the Big Island. Officials say hundreds of vacation homes were destroyed over the weekend in the most destructive display yet. The magnitude 5.5 quake was just the latest in a series of quakes fueling the eruption. No injuries were reported. And in Guatemala, another deadly eruption from the volcano of the fire has led to massive evacuations. At least 75 people are dead and nearly 200 missing since the volcano first erupted Sunday. New flows of ash, gas, and rock forced more evacuations and sent waves of panic through nearby towns. CBN's Operation Blessing is at Ground Zero in El Rodeo, where approximately 500 rescue workers are looking for survivors. Teams are serving enough food to feed workers lunch and providing hygiene kits as well as spiritual comfort to more than 2,000 people in shelters. Operation Blessing is also giving medical support for 1,000 patients and delivering face masks to rescuers and firefighters. Operation Blessing on the ground there. Pat?
There's some really good people down in Guatemala. I've been down there. I was there when Rios Montt took over as president, and I've got to know him and his daughter and others. The tremendous people in Guatemala, and this suffering, we need to do everything we can to assist. But these earthquakes have been just horrendous. And are they part of that ring of fire? The answer is yes, all the way up around the Pacific. So what is in jeopardy in the United States? Well, the Pacific Northwest is very much in jeopardy of a tsunami. So that's something to keep in mind. But right now, we need to help Guatemala. Operation Blessing is down there on the scene. We're feeding people. We've got rescue workers. We've got hygiene kits. We've got food and water. We've got other things that people desperately need. Yes.
I talked to a missionary from Guatemala yesterday by phone who was on the ground there, Pat, and he said that he talked to one lady who lost her entire family, about 40 members, because they live all together in these villages. And another man who had lost like 5 members, he said that the death toll is being severely underreported because so many people are missing. Yeah. And he sent me photographs of just burned babies from the lava, and you just can't imagine. I mean, we're only seeing just a tiny little bit right now because it's pretty remote where they are. But as you were saying, I mean, the suffering is unimaginable for these people.
Well, that's the story, and ladies and gentlemen, let's reach out to help them. Operation Blessing, it's 1-800-700-7000, or you can say Disaster Relief Fund, Operations Blessings International Disaster Relief Fund. And you can specify as your gifts to Guatemala. Well, Ephraim has a story that is unbelievable. This is unbelievable, and it's inspiring. Ephraim, tell us about it.
Indeed it is. A 9-year-old girl is inspiring people across the country with her impressive handwriting skills. Anaya Ellick recently won first place in a national penmanship contest. As Charlene Aaron shows us, though, what makes her so amazing is she has no hands.
It's 12, right? Anaya Ellick doesn't let anything stop her from doing the things she enjoys.
I just like writing in cursive. And if I'm sad and I draw, it makes me feel happy.
Born without hands, the 3rd grader from Greenbrier Christian Academy uses her forearms to write. At a year old, her grandmother taught her to steady the pencil between her 2 wrists. Her mother says the family decided against the use of prostheses.
And they actually started to hinder her rather than help her. She didn't want them anymore. She had already started learning how to do different things without them. She learned to write and draw without them.
In a time with mainly computer keyboards and no emphasis on writing or spelling, teachers at the school say teaching students cursive writing is a vital part of their development.
Research has shown that the part of the brain that does writing is closely related to children learning to read and to spell. In doing cursive writing, they learn to look at the word as a whole. And so that is very important for their fluidity in reading and for them to be able to write words as a whole.
School officials recently entered Anaya in a national cursive writing competition. Anaya's work went under a category for students with cognitive delays, intellectual, physical, or developmental disabilities, which was judged by a team of occupational therapists. Facing stiff competition and strict guidelines, the little girl with no hands came out on top. Teachers and contest organizers are absolutely amazed at the quality of Anaya's work.
The people that judge the contest do it on the keys of legibility, which is the size, the shape, the slant, and the spacing of the letters, so they don't all scrunch in together. And when you look at her handwriting, it's just absolutely beautiful. To think that she can do that without any hands is very impressive.
The biggest thing that Anaya has taught our class is that there's no excuses. Anaya has learned that at an early age because of the struggle she has had and the obstacles. She's learned, I can't do this yet, but I can figure out a way to do it, or to come very close to doing it.
And how does Anaya feel about taking home an even bigger trophy this year?
Proud.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
She should be proud indeed. Her handwriting is better than mine. Pat?
Well, it's sure a whole lot better than mine. It's good, so I've got to get somebody to write the checks for me. It's really bad.
Hopefully she can become a doctor and have good handwriting.
Right? You can't ever read with the doctors pride themselves on being illegible. Isn't that marvelous, though?
So incredible.
But, you know, with all these iPads and the stuff, the kids, all they got to do is punch buttons. They aren't learning spelling, and they certainly aren't learning cursive writing. They used to be, they had those, long tablets with the big spaces, and they taught people to write cursive and everything. Yeah. Now, it's not there, but that girl with no hands, I mean, that was the national competition, folks. Whew.
God's got a great plan for her.
There's no excuse for any of us.
Amen.
Amen.